Hello and welcome to a video that's a little different to usual. In this video we're going to be finishing off a project that was started over 3 years ago and was put on the back burner. We're going to be finishing up a castle perfect to go inside the Vivarium that I can guarantee that almost any reptile would love to explore and climb all over. But first I need to take you back to 3 years ago when the build first began. Now to start off with, it didn't really look like much. Using some 1-inch thick polystyrene foam, the basic structure to the whole castle was assembled to the size needed for the vivarium it was meant for. The first piece you should cut out is the top-down profile of the whole castle. This piece will then be used as the floor in the middle of the structure. You can then build up ground floor walls by attaching them underneath and the walls to the top floor as well. For this castle, we decided to leave off the back wall on the bottom floor to allow easier access. The hot wire foam factory set was used for this to cut out all the foam pieces, just like in our other videos, and then we used silicone to stick everything together. You can find links in the description where you can buy your own set. The final piece that was needed for the base shape was the roof. Hold your first piece at the angle you want it at, and then mark roughly where it's directly above the middle of the gap in the top floor. You then use the first piece as a reference for making and cutting out all the other pieces of foam, and then repeat the process of marking and cutting until everything fits together well enough for the glue to hold. Remember that like most of our ornaments, we're going to coat this in concrete so we don't have to be 100% accurate with our cuts, as it will cover any small holes just fine. Once you have everything glued together, you'll be left with a very blocky outline of your castle. The next step is to cut out the front archway and a window on the top floor, making sure that they are both in the centre of the model. After that, we can move on to adding more of the base details. Some thinner sheet polystyrene is cut into small rectangular pieces to represent bricks and then glued on both around the arch and the window. We are also going to add for the first two parts of the front two towers by stacking multiple circular pieces on top of each other with a quarter cut out of each circle to make them fit snugly against the corners of the castle. Now on to adding some more detail. We're going to build up the walls on the side pieces of the castle and then add merlons, the little blocks that sit on the top to give a bit more character. We are also going to build up the top of the towers by first adding two circles that are slightly wider than the base of the towers with a small circle sandwiched between them. We are then going to place some small chunks of foam between them to give the effect of windows, and then finally add 3 continually smaller circles on top to start off the cone of the roof. Once the silicone is dried, you can then shave away the excess foam to make the cone of the roof nice and smooth. We are also going to remove a section at the back of the top floor in order to give our little friends an easier way to climb up from below. The final step of the original process was to add a large tower to the back of the model using the same steps as we've already used to make the walls and the merlons on top of it. The final step that I'd made it to 3 years ago was to coat the whole thing in concrete ready to paint. 1 or 2 coats of concrete will do just fine here, as we're going to cover the whole thing in resin to make it extra strong. Now moving ahead to present day, it's time to finish off this thing properly. We're going to start by adding a whole lot more detail to our base model. Using a rotary tool, a tile pattern was added to the roof pieces. Just draw out your patterns with a pen and then follow that with a grinding or cutting bit to get the tile effect. Styrofoam Cobbles were added to pretty much every overhang and were sized to fit by eye each time. A simple portcullis was made using some thin strips of wood that were cut out from some used mixing sticks. And for a final touch, we 3D printed out some Barks Pets logos to put on the front of the castle. All of these were added using some 5-minute epoxy. All of the newly added foam was then covered in a thin layer of concrete, and some thicker concrete was used as an added support to keep the portcullis in place. When the concrete is dried, the whole thing is then sprayed white as a base layer before being covered with some flat grey paint, which needs to cover everything but the roof tiles. We then used a black spray paint from underneath to coat the inside of the castle, and then used a slightly darker grey to give the stonework a mottled look. Next up, we used a brown to cover all of the roof tiles and a lighter grey colour as a dry brush to bring out the raised detail from the concrete to make the whole castle really pop. The portcullis and the Barks Pets lettering were both given a coat of silver to make them really stand out when under the light inside the vivarium. Finally, we gave everything a few coats of clear plaster dip, making sure to give an extra coat or two to any sections where there'd likely be a lot of climbing to make sure that none of the paint gets rubbed away over time. And that's it, your castle is now done. I know ours took a very long time, but let me know how yours went in the comments below. And also, is there anything that you would have done differently? And do you have any old products that you really want to get finished? If you like this video and want to see more like it, then please like and subscribe so that you won't miss out on any of our future content, and we'll see you in the next video.